Welcome to Heartfelt Stories. What happens when a billionaire's search for trust leads him to test the kindness of a stranger? Matthew Cain had it all: wealth, power, and influence, but he was still searching for something real. His journey takes an unexpected turn when he meets Lily, a waitress who may just change everything. Stay tuned to see how this story unfolds. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's get started. Matthew Cain was a man who had everything. A billionaire by the age of 35. He owned a sprawling mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, and the respect of the business world. His company, a tech empire, had grown beyond his wildest dreams. But despite all of his success, Matthew found himself facing an unshakable emptiness. He had wealth, power, and influence, but genuine human connection seemed increasingly rare. The city he called home, Los Angeles, was filled with people who wanted something from him: business partners, acquaintances, employees. But despite the endless stream of people who surrounded him, Matthew felt more alone than ever. His wealth, once a symbol of his triumph, had become a barrier between him and the world. He was constantly surrounded by people who treated him with respect, but it was never clear if it was out of genuine admiration or just because of his vast fortune. Over the years, his heart had hardened. Betrayals, shady dealings, and broken promises had made him cautious, even suspicious, of everyone. Yet, in the quiet moments, when the business deals had ended and the meetings were over, Matthew was left to wonder: was kindness still real? Was there anyone in the world who could see past his wealth and recognize the person underneath? And so, with the weight of isolation pressing on him, Matthew decided to test the world once more, this time testing the kindness of a stranger. One chilly evening, he found himself walking into a small diner on the outskirts of town. It was nothing like the high-end restaurants he frequented, but there was something appealing about its simplicity. The diner had vinyl booths, a faded sign outside, and a warm glow that invited passers-by in. It reminded him of his early days, when he had struggled to make a name for himself, before his life had become a whirlwind of business meetings and endless transactions. As he entered, his eyes immediately fell on a young waitress who seemed to exude an air of sincerity. Her name tag read Lily, and she smiled as she greeted him with a genuine warmth that caught him off guard. There was no hesitancy, no hesitation in her manner. She didn't treat him like a billionaire. She treated him like a person, with kindness and respect. As Matthew settled into a booth, something stirred inside him. Lily's unassuming demeanor and her genuine kindness intrigued him. It was something he hadn't experienced in years, and the question lingered in his mind: was it real? Or was it just an act to earn a generous tip from a well-dressed man like him? As he ate his meal, Matthew watched Lily with quiet curiosity. She moved effortlessly between tables, offering a kind word or a smile to each patron, no matter how wealthy or ordinary they seemed. To her, there was no difference. Everyone was treated the same. This intrigued him. She wasn't fawning over him, like so many others in his life did. She wasn't giving him special treatment. She was simply kind. The thought crossed his mind, and before he could stop himself, he decided to test her. He had been let down by people time and time again, and if there was even the smallest chance that Lily's kindness was genuine, he needed to know. He needed to test it. On a whim, he decided to leave his wallet on the table as he excused himself to use the restroom. He wasn't worried about the money. It wasn't the point. It was a test. Would she take it, assuming he wouldn't notice? Or would she return it, as she had done with every other customer's belongings? He tried not to think too much about it, but the question lingered in his mind as he walked to the restroom. The restroom was empty, and as he washed his hands, his thoughts raced. What if she took the wallet? What would that say about her? What would that say about him? Was he right to be suspicious? Or had he allowed his wealth and experience to color his view of the world? When he returned to the table, he scanned the room. His heart began to race when he saw that his wallet was gone. The initial shock made him tense, but he forced himself to remain calm. He sat down quietly, pretending to look at the menu as he surveyed the diner. There, at the far side of the room, was Lily, chatting with another customer. her smile as warm as ever, her demeanor unchanged. His suspicion grew. Was this it? Was she just like everyone else? But as he continued to watch, something unexpected happened. Lily walked over to him, her face filled with calm sincerity. "Sir," she said, holding his wallet out to him with a gentle smile. "I found this on the table. You must have left it behind by accident." Matthew's heart skipped a beat. He had expected something different, maybe an awkward glance, a quick glance at the wallet, or perhaps no action at all. Instead, she had done exactly what anyone should do. She had returned it without hesitation, without a second thought. He accepted the wallet, feeling a strange mix of relief and disappointment. The test, in his eyes, had failed. Lily had passed it with flying colors. She had proven herself honest, as she had shown no signs of taking advantage of him, despite the opportunity. But Matthew wasn't quite ready to let it go. Was this the full story? Could she truly be this principled? Or had he simply caught her on an off day? No, he needed to know more. The first test had been too easy, too straightforward. He couldn't let it end there. As he paid the bill and left the diner that night, Matthew's mind was racing. He had seen something rare, something valuable in Lily, but he wasn't ready to believe that it was truly as simple as it seemed. No, he needed another test, a deeper dive into who Lily really was. He had seen the kindness, but could she truly live up to it, even when the pressure was on? The next evening, Matthew couldn't shake the thought of Lily from his mind. His mind kept replaying the moment when she had returned his wallet without hesitation. He had spent so much of his life trying to test and control everything. But this simple act of kindness had caught him off guard. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, so genuine, so unaffected by status or wealth. But was it all real? Could someone be so honest and kind without some ulterior motive? The feeling of disappointment lingered in his chest. He had hoped to catch her in a lie or some act of greed, something that would validate his jaded view of the world. But now, he found himself second-guessing everything. What if she really was this selfless? What if he had misjudged her, just like he had misjudged so many others in his life? Matthew knew one thing for certain: he couldn't let this go. He had to know more. The first test had been too easy, too straightforward. It was too clean, too simple. He needed something deeper, a situation that would put her character to the test in a way that couldn't be faked. So, he returned to the diner the very next evening, intent on discovering more. This time, he was going to dig deeper. He ordered a more elaborate meal, something that would take longer for her to prepare. As he waited, he struck up a casual conversation with Lily, trying to learn more about her without revealing his true intentions. Lily was polite and friendly as always, but as they spoke, he could see a different side of her. She talked about her life, about how she was putting herself through school while working double shifts at the diner. Her father had passed away recently, and her mother was sick. Despite the weight of her struggles, Lily remained optimistic, never once complaining about her situation. Her strength and determination impressed him. Here was a young woman working hard to support her family, putting herself through school, and yet she still treated every customer with kindness and respect. She didn't act as though she was owed anything. She simply gave, without expectation. But as Matthew listened, he noticed a flicker of something in her eyes, an underlying worry that she was trying to mask. As she continued to talk, it became clear to him that life was hard for her. She was carrying the weight of her family's struggles on her shoulders. And yet, she never let it show in her demeanor. She wore her optimism like a shield, and it only made him admire her more. Still, Matthew couldn't let go of his doubts. As the evening wore on, he excused himself from the table, saying he needed to make a phone call outside. This was it. This was his chance to test her again. He placed his wallet on the table and stepped outside, carefully watching through the window as Lily went about her work. For a moment, he watched her glance at the wallet, her eyes scanning the room, making sure no one else had noticed it. Matthew's heart raced. Could this be the moment she would fail? Was she really as honest as she seemed? Or would she take the opportunity to pocket the money? But instead of pocketing it, Lily did something unexpected. She carefully picked up the wallet, glanced around, and then placed it behind the counter. She continued with her work as if nothing unusual had happened. There was no hesitation, no temptation to take what wasn't hers. When Matthew returned to the table, Lily handed him the wallet with a calm, polite smile. "Sir, I believe you left this again," she said, her tone as pleasant and professional as always. Matthew stared at her, his mind reeling. He had hoped that, under the pressure of her financial situation, Lily would falter, but she hadn't. She had once again proven herself to be the person she had appeared to be: honest, selfless, and truly kind. Thank you," Matthew said, masking his growing frustration with a polite smile. He had hoped for a moment of revelation, but instead, he had been faced with something far more difficult to process: Lily's unwavering integrity. Over the next several days, Matthew couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He tried to justify his actions, telling himself that it was just one test, that he needed to know for sure. But deep down, he realized that there was something bigger happening here. He had been trying to prove a point, but now he found himself admiring Lily in a way he hadn't expected. Still, his curiosity wasn't satisfied. He couldn't let it go. What would happen if he tested her even further? What would she do if he pushed her harder? If he gave her the chance to really prove herself? Matthew was determined to find out. He continued visiting the diner regularly, setting up new tests for Lily. He left cash under his plate, forgot his watch, and even slipped a check into the napkin holder. Every time, she returned the items without hesitation. She never took a penny for herself, never showed the slightest inclination to exploit her position. But something was happening inside Matthew as well. Each test he devised, each time he watched Lily act with grace and honesty, he began to feel a growing sense of respect and admiration for her. It was as though he had found something he didn't know he was looking for: a woman whose values and integrity were far more valuable than anything he had ever achieved in his business career. Despite his growing admiration, Matthew's skepticism remained. Could someone be this selfless? Was it possible that Lily was truly as principled as she seemed? Or was this all an act? Was she pretending to be something she wasn't, simply to earn her tips and get by? He needed to know. And soon, he would find out. Days turned into weeks, and with each visit, Matthew's internal conflict grew stronger. The more he tested Lily, the more impressed he became by her integrity. But with each test, his doubts and insecurities only grew. Why was she so perfect? Why had she never taken anything, even when it seemed like she could desperately use it? Was this just some well-crafted act? He had tested people his entire life. In his world of business deals, meetings, and high-stakes decisions, everyone was either a means to an end or a potential risk. Trust was a luxury, something Matthew could never afford. That's why he had turned to this strange experiment in the first place. He wanted to prove that there was no such thing as pure goodness, that everyone had a price. But as he spent more time observing Lily, he realized that perhaps he was wrong. She had no agenda. She didn't need his money, and she wasn't interested in his power. She was just kind. But was it really possible to trust someone like her? Someone from a completely different world? One evening, after another test had failed to reveal any flaw in her character, Matthew found himself sitting in the diner long after the last of the other patrons had left. He had just finished his meal when he overheard a conversation between Lily and another waitress. The tone of their voices was quiet, almost hesitant, and Matthew couldn't help but listen in, curiosity overtaking him. "I just don't know how much longer I can keep this up," Lily said, her voice cracking slightly. "I've been working double shifts, but with Mom's bills piling up, I'm barely getting by. And now, I don't know if I can keep school up." Matthew's heart sank as he heard the vulnerability in her voice. He had been so focused on his tests, so intent on proving something to himself, that he hadn't stopped to consider what Lily might be going through. Here she was, putting on a brave face every day, working tirelessly to support her family, and still barely able to make ends meet. Lily paused, wiping a tear from her cheek before continuing. "I might have to quit school to care for her full time. It's just getting too much." A wave of guilt washed over Matthew. He had been so consumed by his skepticism, by his need to control the situation, that he had never once considered the strain she was under. And here she was, someone he had been testing like an object. And yet she had shown him nothing but kindness and dedication. He wanted to do something, but he didn't know how. He couldn't just give her money. It would be too much, too obvious. He knew that, just like his previous attempts. That would only serve to undermine the trust he was so desperately trying to build with her. He had to find another way. Matthew's mind raced as he sat there, watching Lily interact with the last few customers. He had been in a position of power for so long, surrounded by people who would have done anything to win his favor. But here was a woman who had everything to gain by accepting his wealth. And yet, she refused to take anything from him. Her dignity was her own. That night, Matthew left the diner with a plan forming in his mind. He would help her, but he wouldn't do it in a way that might damage her pride or her sense of self-worth. He would offer her something she could accept without feeling like she was being handed a handout. The next day, he returned to the diner with a proposition. As he sat down and ordered his usual meal, Matthew waited for Lily to approach. And when she did, he wasted no time. "Lily," he began, his voice sincere, "I've been watching you for some time now. I admire your integrity, your work ethic, and the way you've managed to stay positive despite everything life has thrown at you." Lily looked at him with a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Thank you, Mr. Kane. I'm just doing what I can. Life isn't always easy." Matthew nodded, then paused. "I see a lot of potential in you, Lily. I think you could do so much more than just wait tables. I'd like to offer you a job, something more than just working here. I need a personal assistant, someone with integrity and dedication. You have those qualities. The pay would be much better than what you're earning now, and you'd have an opportunity to learn new skills. What do you think?" Lily was taken aback. She hadn't expected this kind of offer from someone like Matthew. She had always seen him as a distant figure, someone rich, powerful, and detached from the struggles of people like her. She hesitated, unsure whether she was qualified or if she should even take him up on the offer. "I don't know. I'm not sure I have the right qualifications," she said, looking at him doubtfully. "You don't need qualifications," Matthew reassured her. "You've already proven to me that you have everything I need. Your integrity, your work ethic, those are the only things that matter. I'd like you to come work for me, not just as a waitress in my diner, but as my assistant. What do you say?" Lily paused, her mind racing. This was a chance, a big opportunity, but at the same time, she didn't want to take something that might come with strings attached. She had seen too many people fall in a trap set by wealthy men like Matthew. But something about the way he spoke, the sincerity in his voice, made her think twice. After a moment, she nodded. "Okay, I'll give it a try. I'm grateful for the opportunity." Matthew couldn't believe how easily Lily had agreed to his offer. There was a part of him that had expected hesitation or even rejection. After all, she had every right to doubt his intentions. But instead, she had agreed. And in that moment, something inside him shifted. He had not only gained her trust, but had also, perhaps, found a piece of the person he had been missing all along. Someone who valued integrity and loyalty above all else. Over the following weeks, Lily began her new role as Matthew's personal assistant. She was diligent, organized, and sharp, everything he could have hoped for. She helped him manage his busy schedule, organizing meetings and keeping track of important documents. But what impressed him most was her ability to manage his personal life with the same care and attention to detail that she had shown as a waitress. Despite her newfound position, she had remained grounded, humble, and focused on doing the best job she could. Matthew found himself relying on her more and more, not just for work, but for advice and even companionship. He had never allowed himself to trust anyone so completely. But there was something different about Lily. She wasn't seeking anything from him except to do her job to the best of her ability. In return, Matthew started to see her as more than just an employee. He saw her as a partner, someone whose presence made his life more manageable and, in a strange way, more fulfilling. Despite his growing admiration for her, Matthew's old doubts still lingered. He had spent years guarding himself against betrayal, and now that he had allowed someone into his life, He couldn't help but question whether it was all real. Was Lily genuinely loyal? Or was she just biding her time, waiting for the moment when she could make a move for herself? He still couldn't shake the fear that the world was full of people trying to take advantage of him. Even Lily, who had proven herself time and time again, hadn't fully convinced him that her intentions were completely pure. But then, something happened that would change everything. One afternoon, as Lily was organizing papers in Matthew's office, she came across an old photograph hidden among some of his files. It was a photo of Matthew's late friend, a man named James Turner, who had once been one of his closest business partners. The photograph showed James standing next to a young Lily's father. They looked happy, laughing together on a sunny afternoon. Lily's heart skipped a beat as memories flooded back. Her father, before his passing, had once been a successful businessman, though he had left that life behind to pursue a simpler path as a mechanic. He had told her stories of the days when he worked alongside Matthew. He had mentioned Matthew's kindness and his belief in hard work, but they had fallen out years ago, and Lily had never quite understood why. Lily's mind raced as she pieced the story together. This man, the one she had been working for, was the same Matthew who had once been close to her father. Her father had talked about him so fondly, and now, here she was, working for him, unaware of their past connection. She took a deep breath and approached Matthew, who was sitting at his desk, reviewing some documents. "Matthew," she began, her voice quiet but steady, "I came across something I think you should see." Matthew looked up, his brow furrowing in curiosity. "What is it?" Lily placed a photo on his desk, her fingers brushing against the edges. "I found this while I was going through the files. This is a photo of my father. Isn't it?" Matthew stared at the picture, his expression softening. "Yes," he said quietly. "James Turner. We were very close once." Lily's voice trembled as she spoke. "My father told me a lot about you. He spoke highly of you, but he never really explained what happened between you two. Why did you stop working together?" Matthew sighed, leaning back in his chair. "It was a misunderstanding. Business can sometimes make people do things they regret. James and I had a falling out over a deal I was too ambitious about. I pushed him too hard, and he couldn't handle the pressure. He walked away, and we both went our separate ways. I've regretted it ever since." Lily sat down across from him, absorbing the weight of his words. She had always known her father had a strong moral compass, and hearing Matthew's side of the story confirmed the man she had grown up hearing about was not the cold, calculating billionaire she had once imagined. "I had no idea," Lily said, her voice thoughtful. "My father never mentioned that. But hearing you talk about it, he never regretted leaving that life behind. He was happier working with his hands." Matthew nodded, his eyes distant. "I never understood it then, but I do now. I lost sight of what truly mattered. Success and money became everything to me. But in the end, it wasn't enough. I thought I had everything, but I was left with nothing, no true friends, no meaningful relationships, just a hollow shell of achievement." Lily could see the sincerity in his eyes, and for the first time, she saw Matthew not as the billionaire business tycoon, but as a man who had been through his own struggles and regrets. In that moment, everything shifted. He wasn't just her boss anymore. He was someone who had been hurt, someone who had made mistakes, and someone who, like her, was trying to find a better path forward. "I've been testing you for so long," Matthew continued, his voice tinged with guilt, "trying to see if you were truly honest, if you were someone I could trust. But what I've come to realize is that I was the one who needed to change. You've taught me more about integrity and loyalty than anyone else in my life ever has." Lily smiled softly, her eyes full of understanding. "Matthew, I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to do a good job and take care of my family. But I can see that we both needed to learn something from each other." In that moment, Matthew felt a shift deep within himself. He had spent his life guarding his heart, building walls to protect himself from the world. But now, with Lily by his side, he realized that the walls he had built were only keeping him from experiencing the true wealth of life, the relationships that mattered, the people who cared. The next few weeks were transformative, as Lily continued working as Matthew's assistant. Their professional relationship grew into something deeper. They began to work together on projects that aimed to give back to the community. Matthew started using his wealth to support causes that Lily had always been passionate about: healthcare, education, and homelessness. But more than that, Matthew found himself becoming a different man. He was more compassionate, more present in his personal relationships. And through it all, Lily remained by his side, not as an employee, but as a partner, helping him navigate the path to redemption. The weeks turned into months, and as Matthew and Lily continued to work together, the transformation in both of them became undeniable. Matthew, the billionaire once consumed by his empire, had become a man of depth and sincerity. The walls he had built around his heart had crumbled, replaced by a genuine desire to connect, to give, and to make a difference in the lives of others. Lily, too, had changed. What started as a job, an opportunity she had accepted with hesitation, had blossomed into something much more profound. She had always believed in the value of hard work, honesty, and integrity, but now she saw those same values reflected in Matthew. Through him, she had come to realize that success wasn't just about making ends meet. It was about having the freedom to make a real difference, to stand up for what you believed in, and to help others along the way. Together, they had launched several charitable initiatives, Matthew using his business acumen and resources, while Lily brought the human touch. They started a scholarship fund for students from low-income backgrounds, providing financial support for young people who had the drive to succeed but lacked the means. They also set up a foundation focused on healthcare, helping families like Lily's who struggled with medical bills and the rising costs of care. It was in these projects that Matthew finally found fulfillment, the kind of fulfillment he had never found in his business dealings or his personal wealth. He had spent so many years chasing success, building his empire, and accumulating wealth, but in helping others, in truly making a difference, he found the sense of purpose he had been searching for all along. Lily, for her part, had become a pillar of strength within their new endeavors. Her insight, her passion for helping those in need, had made her not only Matthew's trusted assistant, but also his partner in every sense of the word. She was no longer the waitress from the diner, struggling to make ends meet. She was now a leader, someone who had taken control of her own destiny and helped Matthew reshape his as well. But beyond their shared projects, there was something more personal blossoming between them. What had started as a professional relationship, forged through mutual respect and admiration, had grown into something deeper. There were quiet moments, shared smiles, and soft conversations that revealed the bond they had developed, one not based on wealth or status, but on trust, respect, and genuine care for one another. One evening, as they sat in the office, reviewing the latest progress on their foundation's projects, Matthew looked up at Lily with a thoughtful expression. The sun was setting outside, casting a warm glow across the room. And for a moment, the weight of everything they had accomplished seemed to settle in. "I never imagined this," Matthew said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I never imagined that I'd be here, working alongside someone like you, someone who has shown me what really matters. I've spent so much of my life focused on what I could achieve, but I was blind to the things that really make life worth living. You show me that." Lily. Lily smiled, her eyes soft with affection. "I think we've both learned something, Matthew. When you've spent your life chasing after something that seems so important, you forget that the most valuable things aren't things at all. It's people. It's kindness. It's the ability to make a difference in someone's life." Matthew nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "I want to continue this journey with you, not just in business, but in life. You've taught me that the greatest wealth is not in the things we own, but in the people we help, the lives we touch, and the love we share." Lily's heart swelled with emotion as she took a deep breath, her words steady but full of warmth. "I never expected to be where I am now. I never expected any of this, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we crossed paths." Matthew leaned forward, his hand reaching across the table to gently take hers. "I want to build a future with you, Lily, not just for the work we do, but for us. I want to keep growing, keep learning, and keep making a difference. And I want to do it with you by my side." For a moment, the room was silent. The weight of his words hung in the air, but it was a weight that felt right. There was no pretense, no games, no tests, just two people, standing on the same ground, ready to face whatever came next. Lily squeezed his hand, her eyes bright with sincerity. "I'd like that," she said softly. Together, from that day forward, Matthew and Lily continued their journey, not just as business partners, but as equals, learning from each other and growing together. They worked tirelessly to make their foundation a force for good, touching the lives of thousands of people who had once been forgotten. They used their combined resources and values to create a lasting legacy, one built on integrity, compassion, and love. Years later, when they look back on their story, they realized that the tests, the experiments, and the doubts were all part of their journey. But what really mattered was what had come out of it, the understanding that true wealth wasn't in power or money, but in the lives they had changed, the people they had helped, and the love they had found in each other. Matthew's journey had been one of transformation. He had spent his life chasing success and wealth, only to realize that true fulfillment didn't come from what he had accumulated, but from the relationships he had built and the lives he had impacted. Lily's unwavering integrity had shown him the value of honesty, selflessness, and compassion. Through their shared experiences, they discovered that the greatest wealth is not in what you own, but in the love you give and the difference you make in the world.